Thank you again, everyone, for joining our webinar today. Whether this is your first time interacting with the Evergreen team, or if you're a veteran of our events, we welcome everyone, and we're excited to talk to you about the things we have coming up here in the next few weeks, and explain a little bit more about who we are and what it is that we do. We do hold these information sessions about every 6 months or so. They line up with our investment cycles. So we'll kind of get into more details on that later on. But we think it's important to use this as a informational session for entrepreneurs, anyone interested in climate tech, to understand some of the opportunities that our organization and related efforts kind of provide to the ecosystem as a whole. So first, we'll give a brief introduction for ourselves. This event is hosted by myself and Shashank and my colleague Dylan. So we'll introduce ourselves and the rest of the team. We'll go over some of the fundraising opportunities that we provide, both directly with money and then also with some of the other platform resources that we provide. And then we'll jump into some of the other opportunities related to other funding sources, as well as general programs that people can get involved in to get support and attention in the climate tech space in the Midwest. And at the end, we'll wrap it up with some Q&A. You're free at any point throughout this webinar to drop in your questions in the chat, and we'll be sure to address those at the end of the webinar. So yeah, welcome everyone. So I think it's good to first see and talk about the Evergreen team as a whole. We are a relatively small team. The entire company is 9 people, and I'm the most recent one. So, but we're very mighty in our accomplishments and what we've been able to do. This is a picture of the whole team taken recently, about 2 months ago, at our flagship event, which we call Co-Invest Climate. It was the first time in 3 years that we held that event in person. And we held that in a great event space in the Motor Road District here in Chicago. And it was an awesome event. It was a full day event. We had all in about 20 startups giving pitches. And there's over, I would say 300 people, between entrepreneurs, climate tech enthusiasts, investors, and general stakeholders in the area that were able to attend. So that was a great event. And for those of you who are on this call who were able to join, we hope you enjoyed it. And for those who have not, we look forward to potentially having you come to the next one. So once again, my name is Shashank Churukanti. I work as a venture associate here at Evergreen, which means I'm on the investment team, and the majority of the work I do is assessing new opportunities, doing research into upcoming markets that we want to get involved in, and doing due diligence on companies that come through our pipeline. This is only my 4th month on the team, so like I said, I'm definitely the new guy. So this is also my first investment cycle that I'm going through, but it is a very exciting space to be engaged in right now. Prior to joining Evergreen, well, backing up quite a bit, I attended Northwestern University. I studied electrical engineering, so that's where my academic background is. And I spent the last 10 years working at SpaceX in the avionics engineering department, working on a variety of avionics architecture for the Falcon launch vehicles, and then also some satellite subsystems. So that's kind of the hardware-focused background that I bring to the Evergreen team here. Dylan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I am Dylan O'Reilly. I am the Senior Program Manager here at Evergreen. I've been with the organization for about 3.5 years now, and I work with Shashank on the investment team to evaluate and conduct due diligence on potential investment opportunities. In addition, when I'm not on the investment team, I have the great honor of leading a couple of our award opportunities that we offer to entrepreneurs in partnership with a few of our strategic partners, specifically the U.S. Bank Foundation and Nicor Gas. And I'll get to tell you a little bit about more about those opportunities later. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Dylan. So yeah, Evergreen is a pretty unique organization. We are a venture capital firm, but we are structured as a nonprofit. And I will go into the details on kind of the nuances there. But basically, our mission and our goal is to provide, what we call catalytic capital to entrepreneurs who are working on, anything related to sustainability space, and anything that can be impactful both in a monetary sense, but also impactful in a sustainability and CO2 reduction sense as well. So that's kind of our bread and butter. We've been doing it for over 8 years. And one of the theses that we have that kind of governs our firm is we really look to make our investments in what we call the greater Midwest area, which is loosely defined as from like Denver to Pittsburgh. And one of the theses that we have for that is, venture capital traditionally has been very focused on the coasts with, obviously the West Coast of Silicon Valley, and then East Coast being like the New York, Boston area. And one of the things that we believe is that there is a similar amount of intellectual capital in the middle part of the country as there is on the coast. However, it is just more greatly dispersed given the larger, areas and the kind of more proliferation of the university spread out over a larger area. So that is where we think that we can play a good role in basically working with universities, working with different accelerator programs that you hear more about today, to put our dollars to work in order to catalyze the next kind of innovations to happen in the clean tech space. So going back to us being a nonprofit, we call ourselves the 501 VC fund, which is trademarked. So as you see anyone else use it, you should let us know. But basically, we are a revolving evergreen fund. So for those who do not know, venture capital firms, for the most part, they raise money from investors, which are called limited partners. They deploy that capital, and typically after 10 years, could be longer, but it's most of the time 10 years, they return that money back to the investors. Whereas we are an evergreen fund, and what that means is we are capitalized by philanthropic dollars. And once we deploy that capital, as we have exits and money gets returned back to the fund, rather than returning it to our investors, which we have none, we deploy that to the next round of startups that we're interested in investing in. And so the goal here is to make a self-sustaining cycle where basically our earlier bets pay off, and then that kind of helps fund the future bets. And all the while, we are still continuing to make connections in the space, meet new donors, meet people who want to make an impact and have their dollar go further than it would with a traditional, philanthropic donation. One of the cool things that we also try to do is make sure when we do find the capital, or when we do find the companies that are interested in investing in, we want to make sure that they have the ability to have a high impact to the clean tech market. So while we are a nonprofit, we are absolutely in it to still, make large investment or make large gains from our investments and kind of push the impact forward. And one of the things that's advantageous about this model is, given that we're not constrained to a 10-year timeline to return money to investors, we can operate our fund and the decisions that we advise our startups on in a more kind of optimal way. A lot of the times we work with like hardware companies and their product development cycles are longer than 10 years. But whereas we are not going to be super concerned with a deadline to return money to investors, we could work with them to make sure that the decisions we make at any given point are the optimal decisions for the business. And we believe that in time, that will lead to a greater impact. So that's kind of some of the nuances and differences about Evergreen compared to other venture capital firms. So yeah, kind of going deeper into the funding opportunities. So we are a seed stage venture capital firm. And so our check sizes in the traditional sense are pretty small. They typically range from $200,000 to $300,000. Though at times we have invested a little bit more when the opportunity is compelling and we feel like there's a good use for our dollars there. Like I said, we focus in the greater Midwest area, and that's typically been our working model for the last 8 years. Next slide. Like I said, we focus in the sustainability and clean tech space. We do take a fairly broad brush to what that is. So where some entities may see clean tech as kind of just energy generation, we see it much more kind of holistically. And I think that's kind of embedded in the various things that we see here in the Midwest. A lot of food and ag opportunities that aren't necessarily prevalent in other parts of the country. But if you look at our portfolio, we invest in companies that, on the surface may not appear to be super directly related to, reducing the impacts of climate change, but we do feel like they do a function that serves the overall purpose of making humanity more sustainable going forward. And I think on the next slide, we show our portfolio. So, to date, since 2014, we've invested in 41 companies. We've had 5 exits. We've also had a handful of shutdowns, but we totally expect that being in the venture capital space. You can kind of do some research if you'd like on any of our portfolio companies. They're on our website, and you can see both what industries they're in, and also kind of what their products are that they deliver to the market. Our latest investment is a Chicago-based company called Cadea. They are working on manufacturing and designing smart bottling stations to reduce and eliminate the use of single-use plastic water bottles. So obviously, as the economy's grown over time and our use of single-use plastics has grown, this is something that's largely become pretty unsustainable, as a lot of that is very quick to make, is very quick to be consumed, but takes forever to decompose and go back to its constituent parts. So we feel like Cadea has a big goal in basically eliminating that those single-use items and producing something that will be much more sustainable and environmentally friendly going forward. So Cadea is one of 3 companies that we invested in from our latest investment cycle. And typically in each cycle, we try to find a couple, 2 to 3 companies that we invest in after going through a normal, due diligence and multiple meetings and learning as much as we can about both the company and the space. So we're very excited to be a part of Cadea. As far as our overall portfolio and the impact, there's a couple numbers here that I will point out that we are very, that excite us and kind of validate to us that what we're doing is good and kind of pushing these awesome initiatives forward. So the first one is on the left-hand side, the $41 follow-on funding that our portfolio companies receive. So like I said earlier, our check sizes are on the smaller side, being a seed stage focused venture capital fund. But what we love to see is that after we put our money in, larger, more institutional investors also put their money in higher quantities. So, for every dollar that we invest, and we've deployed up until this point almost $8 million, we've seen $41 follow on those investments. So that's really awesome to see. And what's also been pretty great is that number has grown over time. And obviously, like as we deploy more capital, we expect that number to come down. But realistically, we've only seen that accelerate upwards. So that's an awesome thing that we are proud of. Another thing that makes us pretty proud is the number in the lower right, which is the 37% Evergreen first money in. Oftentimes the companies we work with are very small, like 2 to 5 people. And we like having that personal relationship with the founders. We feel like we're there with them at the beginning, and we advise them on a lot and are definitely not just, it's not like you get a check from us and then we're off. We definitely consider ourselves partners in the journey. And being the first money in, we feel like we have a pretty good relationship with a lot of our founders. And even as they have gone on to, raise more money and get a Series A, Series B, and have much larger investors, we still feel like we're very involved for being, a fund size that we are. So that's another thing that makes us very proud. Here's some testimonials from a few of our portfolio companies. I'm not going to read them for you here, but I do want to talk a little bit about some of the value proposition that Evergreen does provide beyond just the check. So I talked about earlier our flagship event, Co-Invest. We provided over a dozen of our portfolio companies the opportunity to pitch at that event to a number of investors, and a number of companies were able to find investors who are interested to participate. And we've so far had a number of checks actually written for those companies who are in the fundraising process. So we feel like we can provide companies a platform upon which you can demonstrate your technology. You can kind of reach out to the platform and infrastructure that we provide in order to take advantage of some of the capital we have here in the Midwest that's focused in the climate tech space. And some other things that we do is, we have a CEO summit that we do yearly, which is more of a leadership seminar. So whereas Co-Invest is kind of like a large gathering of a number of people, the CEO summit is definitely more focused to the founders and critical personnel at our portfolio companies, where we try to bring people together to not only have them collaborate with each other and get to know each other, but also provide useful lessons and general guidelines upon which to run businesses and think about leadership. So those are just a few of the examples that we do. But like I said, we're very involved, and we like to remain involved with our companies even after they grow beyond the seed stage. So Evergreen, like I said, we work on investment cycles that typically span about 6 months. So the investment decisions we make happen about twice a year. That being said, we do accept, applications for funding and want to learn about as many companies as we can on a rolling basis. So there's by no means there's not a restraint on when a company can apply for funding. We have, over time, we've kind of reduced any lag time in having a company apply and having them be incorporated into our investment diligence process. So yeah, the next deadline for our applications is February 27th. I think that's all I have on the investment side.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Shashank. So now moving away from our investment program, I'm going to now talk to you a little bit about award opportunities that we offer here at Evergreen. So our awards focus around the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So aligned with our mission of supporting early stage startups that bring impactful climate technologies to market. We are proud to offer multiple opportunities specifically for women, and then Black, Indigenous, and/or people of color entrepreneurs, as they often are disproportionately affected by climate change and therefore uniquely positioned to help drive climate solutions. So in a concerted effort to support these entrepreneurs and make the clean tech ecosystem that we all are a part of more accessible, we formalized our diversity, equity, and inclusion programming, which allows us to build upon this work that Shashank talked about that we're already doing to empower entrepreneurs within our investment side of the business. So the first award that we offer is partnered with US Bank Foundation. The award supports entrepreneurs who identify as female and/or are people of color who are building innovative companies that benefit the environment, create jobs, and drive economic development. There's currently only one winner of this award per year, and that winner receives a $25,000 non-recourse grant, 12 months of customized mentorship from both the Evergreen team, all of us, as well as leadership from the US Bank and the US Bank Foundation. And then in addition, we love to tout our awardees. So there's lots of heightened exposure to folks within our broad network, including potential investors or customers. So the US Bank Award, the 2023 award cycle will open soon, I believe shortly after the new year, and we will be accepting applications through the end of February. Application is pretty quick, shouldn't take too long to do, so I'd encourage anyone who is eligible to apply. And then speaking of eligibility, there are a couple of eligibility requirements that have to be met for this award, specifically as they relate to, in addition to a person's identifying characteristics, what their company is doing and where they're located. So this award is focused on entrepreneurs who are working within the clean tech space, particularly within the energy industry or smart buildings, cities, transportation, and then awardees who may have a product that provides an environmental benefit or service innovation. And then location-wise, differing from our focus on the Greater Midwest, the U.S. Bank Award is focused on U.S. Bank's geographic territory. So it allows us to work and engage with entrepreneurs that are outside of our traditional investment geography. So states like North Carolina, Utah, Montana, Wyoming, et cetera, are eligible to apply, which is great. And then now we've had like the great opportunity of hosting and running this program for the past 3 years, and we have met 3 great founders from the program. In 2020, New Mix Materials won. They developed a water filtration and materials recycling technology. In 2021, Rebundle and their founder, Sierra Amani May, were the winner. Who are creating plant-based braiding hair for those with naturally textured hair. And then our most recent awardee was Doug Williams, the founder of Calico Soul. Calico Soul is a North Carolina-based company that is providing furniture as a service to help businesses meet their sustainability goals and reduce furniture waste. So as you can see, all 3 companies working on very different things, but all within the broader climate ecosystem. So there's a lot of opportunity for folks working on a lot of different technologies or looking to solve different types of problems that are eligible for the U.S. Bank Clean Tech Inclusion Award. And then just to highlight our 2021 awardee, Rebundle, quickly. So Rebundle is a St. Louis-based company, like I said earlier, who is developing plant-based braiding hair for individuals with naturally textured hair. Rebundle, we were so impressed with the work that Sierra is doing and her team that we actually decided to make a private investment in them as well, and they're now a part of our portfolio. So to give them a quick plug, Rebundle also just rebranded and relaunched their site and have product available. So give them a check out on their new website. And this is Sierra actually recently pitching at the event Shashank was talking about, Co-Invest Climate.
Yeah, and if I could add one thing, Dylan, I think Rebundle is a great example of a company that does not really fit what the traditional norm is for maybe a sustainable or clean tech company, but really looks to make sustainable something that a lot of people may not have thought of to be a problem. And so we, at Evergreen, think that the solution for climate tech and sustainability going forward has to be all encompassing and really cover both the big and small needs. So we're happy to be able to progress and provide Sarah with a platform upon which, she can continue pushing her awesome product forward.
Yes, definitely. Well said, Shashank. Okay, then moving forward, we have another award opportunity that we partner with Nicor Gas on. It is the Nicor Gas Multicultural Innovator Award. This award is specifically for entrepreneurs of color in Illinois who are looking to make positive environmental impact. Similar to the U.S. Bank Award, one winner per year receives a non-recourse grant of $25,000, 12 months of customized mentorship, and then again, heightened exposure to folks within our broad Evergreen network, which include investors, strategic partners, potential customers, etc. We run the U.S. Bank Award and the Nicor Gas Award in parallel. So similarly, applications for this will open at the beginning of the year and run through the end of February. And if you meet the application criteria for both, you are welcome to apply for both the U.S. Bank Award and the Nicor Gas Award. In fact, you are encouraged. So yeah. And then criteria for the Nicor Gas Award is slightly different. The definition in terms of like which sectors are eligible is expanded. I won't read them all here, but they're listed and you can also find them on our website. But in contrast for location, this is specifically for entrepreneurs within the state of Illinois, or at least have a substantial presence within the Illinois region. And then we have offered the NICOR Award for the past 2 years, and we've had some great winners. In 2021, Celadine Technologies and Gary Ong were our winner, who are developing a novel hydrogen membrane. And then our most recent awardee was Sansa Kazadi, who is the founder and CEO of Kazadi Enterprises. Kazadi is developing a novel enterochemical system that utilizes a proprietary solution and a desiccator to provide close to zero emission cooling. This technology can be used for a variety of use cases, but they're currently focused on providing low cost cooling for commercial refrigeration. So yeah. And then in addition to opportunities that we provide Evergreen directly, we have a wonderful and strong network of collaborators and partners who offer other opportunities that we wanted to highlight that could be beneficial to climate tech entrepreneurs within the region. So we can go through those pretty quickly. First up is the Energy Tech University Prize. We are super excited to be partnering with the DOE's Office of Technology Transitions for the 2023 Energy Tech University Prize Student Business Plan Competition. If you are interested in applying, you're a student at a university with a great idea, please apply by January 26th of next year. Selected companies will then pitch at the Great Lakes Regional event on Thursday, February 23rd. And then I wanted to also highlight the Heartland Climate Tech Partnership. The Heartland Climate Tech Partnership was founded in 2021 by a group of fellow innovator supporters within the region, including Centropolis Accelerator at Lawrence Technological University, us, Evergreen Climate Innovations, MHub, and the Spark Innovation Center to advance the commercialization of innovative climate tech and clean energy businesses across the greater Midwest region. Project affiliates for the Heartland Project include the Chain Reaction Innovations based at Argonne National Laboratory, the Innovation Crossroads Program at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. So within the Heartland Climate Tech Partnership, there are a number of resources, including various accelerators, physical lab spaces, educational resources, incubators and co-working spaces, national innovation ecosystem partners, and so much more. If you're interested in learning, the website is right there, heartlandclimate.org. And then, so like I said, the partnership was formed in 2021, and the impact within 1 year has been monumental. We've had over 4,000 people attend public events and workshops, 80 plus jobs were created, 300 plus mentorship connections, referrals, and corporate introductions were done. 4 new companies were formed, and then 250 plus one-on-one engagements with startups, and 150 plus startups overall were supported by Heartland related programming. So sky's kind of the limit with what this group can do, and we're excited to continue this partnership moving forward. Then next, I wanted to highlight some specific opportunities that members of the Heartland Climate Tech Award and just friends of Evergreen are offering. So first up, the deadline for Chain Reaction Innovations Entrepreneurship Program at Argonne is coming up. The deadline to apply for the cohort 7 is next November 30th of 2023 to be specific. You can also attend the upcoming cohort 7 informational webinar on Monday, November 28th at 3 p.m. Central. And quickly wanted to note, fellowships include a stipend of $110,000 per year, including travel allowance plus moving expenses, funding for technical work, and more. And Argonne does not take an equity stake in companies that are a part of the CRI program.
And real quick, the date on there should be 2022, not 2023. Our mistake.
Got it. Key. So November 2022. Okay, then next is Innovation Crossroads. Innovation Crossroads is a program supported by the US DOE Advanced Manufacturing Office. Building Technologies Office, and the Tennessee Valley Authority that leverages Oak Ridge National Lab's unique scientific resources and capabilities. The program connects the nation's top innovators with experts, mentors, and networks in technology-related fields to take world-changing ideas from research and development stage to the marketplace. It is a 2-year program focusing on energy and advanced manufacturing-related technologies. Innovators who are part of the fellowship will receive a living stipend along with health insurance and travel allowances to participate. And the deadline for them to apply is November 30th. And I'm assuming this was a typo as well, and it is 2022 rather than 2023. Then next, we have the Centropolis Accelerator. C3 Accelerator offers grants, investments, and a host of business-related services that support the development and scaling of clean tech, climate tech, or general circular economy technologies. The program is open globally, so you don't have to be within this greater Midwest region to be eligible. And it's open to both growth stage startups and established firms. Applications for the C3 Accelerator are accepted on a rolling basis, so you're welcome to apply at any time. And then next we have the Spark Clean Tech Accelerator. This is housed at the University of Tennessee's Research Park down in Knoxville, Tennessee. Spark is a business accelerator designed to help early stage clean tech businesses mature and grow. For each accelerator cohort, they plan to accept up to 6 companies and offer a host of benefits that you can see listed here. Applications for the next cohort for Spark are going to open up early next year, specifically Monday, January 9th. And those applications will close at the end of March, on March 31st of next year. The program roughly runs from August to October, culminating in a demo day that will take place in October of 2023. So I know we just threw a lot of deadlines at you, so they're all listed right here, and we will keep this page up during our Q&A so that you can take notes and write any of them down if needed. But yeah, to highlight some evergreen dates, the deadline for our spring cycle is February 27th, and then the deadline for the NICOR Gas and US Bank Clean Tech Inclusion Awards are the next day on February 28th. So now that we have told you all of this information, we'd love to open up to Q&A. We received a handful of questions that came in ahead of time on our registration form, as well as some that are in the chat. So Shashank, let's see.
Yeah, maybe we should start with the ones in the chat, probably.
Sure. Okay, so the first one says, are you strictly focused on pre-seed and seed stage investments?
Great question. I think given our fund size and, where we see our strongest value proposition, we are heavily focused on the pre-seed and seed. One of the kind of our North Stars, as it were, in our investment philosophy is when we do deploy money, we work with the founders to develop some critical milestones, really identify those, and then configure them in such a way that once they're achieved, it is easier to get the larger, more institutional money to really grow the business in an impactful way. And so, given like that's what our expertise is, we feel like the pre-seed and seed stages are kind of best suited for those strengths. Also, the fact that we're kind of a nonprofit and funded with philanthropic capital makes our risk tolerance a little bit higher. And so, whereas companies that make it to Series A and beyond have had a little bit of, or have had demonstrated some success, really, we try to be the first money in because we want to be able to increase, and expand the breadth of sectors and investments and ideas that could be funded. So, I will not say never really, or very, very rarely will say never, but given who we are and what we do and where our strengths are and where our successes have been, yeah, we really focus on the pre-seed and seed stage.
Yeah, Okay, next question is how do you evaluate opportunity/environmental impact versus IP and barriers to entry for the market? Is one more important than the other?
Great question. Well, the great thing about venture capital is that there is no textbook. So if anyone knows of a textbook out there that tells you how to be a good venture capitalist, I would very much like to read it, being new to the space. But all kidding aside, I think it's important that for any idea to have impact, it really needs to be able to scale and it needs to have a customer, right? Like if there is no customer or the idea does not scale, then by definition, the impact will be limited. So that's kind of like one of the first things we look at is will there be a market for a product? And as we kind of grow the scope as we go through our investment diligence process, obviously understanding the barriers to entry for the competition, understanding kind of the defensibility of patents are all important factors that kind of help us determine, the strength of the different value proposition the product brings, but also like how defensible those revenue streams at a company are. So, there isn't one factor, I would say, above all else that we look at to define what a good investment is. It's kind of qualitative to a certain extent in that we look at a number of different factors. And that's not to say that we don't back it up with quantified data. Like, we build our own models, we gut check the market sizes and TAMs that we get with our own analysis. But there really, I would not say is there's not one thing that's more important than other things. Dylan, you've been working at this longer than I have. Do you agree with that? Is there something that I should pay more attention to than I have?
No, I think you answered that question perfectly. It's really about striking a balance. As an impact focused firm, we obviously are looking for companies with strong environmental impact stories to tell. But like Shashank also said, we are a VC firm and we're looking for a company that can scale and bring positive returns so that we can then invest in more companies later on. And so things like IP and barriers to entry for the market are certainly important to us as well. So we look at everything, I would say. Next question, which I'm happy to answer, is where is the best place to submit updates for our startup after submitting our company for consideration? Easy answer, you can email them to me, dylan@evergreeninno.org. Once you complete an application on our website for funding, you should automatically receive a confirmation email from my email address saying that we got your application. You are welcome to respond to that email with any updates that have occurred whenever. We obviously like to have the most updated information on hand and understand that sometimes, depending on where we're at in the cycle, it might be a little bit before we really take a fine-tooth comb through your application. And so, yeah, we want to have the most up-to-date information possible. Okay, let's see. Next up, it looks like, Shashank, what do you think about this? What makes a clean tech company worth investing in? So, i.e., what are we looking for in a company to invest in?
Yeah, very broad question, but a very good question. I think it goes back to one of the statements I made earlier regarding scale and impact. So obviously, for a company to be a market-driven success, it needs to provide some value to customers that is not so easily found in like elsewhere. So as far specifically as it comes to clean tech, we really, one of the kind of quantifiable ways that we look to measure the impact is understanding what portion of emissions are reduced by the adoption of said product. And so we look at how many tons of CO2 equivalent emissions are kind of avoided because of the adoption of this technology. And that's like one factor we look at, but that kind of directionally tells us which ideas, if executed properly and are able to successfully scale, how successful they can be and how impactful they can be. And so that's not to say we purely invest on that tons of CO2e avoided number, but that is one metric we look at to really gauge if the company is successful, will we be successful in our other goal in pushing forward climate change and improving the sustainability prospects for our planet? So yeah, that's a good question, and hopefully there's a good answer for it.
Definitely. Okay, let's see. Shashank, when we invest in a company, thinking about terms and things like that, do we typically take a board seat when we invest?
Yeah, so typically, I think our standard terms, we do ask for a board observer seat. So that's not to say that we have not taken board seats currently or in the past. We are on the board for some of our portfolio companies, but given the kind of size of our team and the size of our portfolio, we find it to be a pretty large responsibility to have voting responsibilities for each of those portfolio companies. But that being said, we still think we have a pretty good purview of the clean tech sector, specifically as it pertains to the greater Midwest. And we find ourselves to be able to provide valuable feedback in the setting of a board. So nominally, we request board observer seats. We're not really, we can be on the board. We've been asked to be on boards as things have gotten reconstituted and people have seen the level of involvement we have in our startups. But I would say that's not something we nominally ask for.
Okay, we have a few more in the chat and then we can move to the pre-registration questions. So in addition to the grant opportunities listed, is Evergreen a good partner for targeting federal funding? For example, NEVI or the funding from the infrastructure bill?
Yeah, so, I think one of the services that we've provided to our companies and their founders is kind of points of contact and also just experts in the space to kind of navigate some of these new policies. Ian Adams on our team is actually pretty well ingrained in the policy portion of the clean tech sector. And so he's always been able to provide some useful and valuable guidance to companies who are kind of looking to see like what incentives they can eke out from policies that are already out there. So that's definitely something that's a service that we think is valuable, particularly with the recent momentum that climate tech and general sustainability has had, both at the state and federal levels. So yeah, that is a service we provide, and I think it's something that it's one of the good ways in which like our team and the variety of experiences we've had kind of make us well suited for that.
Yes. And then if the question is along the lines of like, are we a good partner in terms of matching funds for federal funding? I don't know if I have the direct answer to that. I think it may depend on certain programs, but companies that have applied in the past have been able to leverage our private capital funding as matching funds, yes, for grant dollars as well. So let's see. Next up, I applied in September and have since made some progresses and a pivot. Can I update my application? Yes, of course you can. Similar to what I said before, you are welcome to either send these updates to me personally, or actually with the way our system works, you are welcome to reapply with updated materials at any time. It won't come into our system as like multiple applications. It'll just update your existing record. So you're welcome to reapply with new materials so that we have the most up-to-date information. Okay, next up, do you help bring other investors in for companies you select to invest in? I'm assuming either with you or in later phases.
Yeah, that's again a great question. So I'll answer it in a couple of different scenarios. So I think obviously, in venture capital, we try to collaborate as much as we can with other investors. Whereas in more mature and later forms of finance, typically individual firms like to take on a deal. In venture capital, collaboration is key because everyone brings like a slightly different perspective to the table. And building a new company from scratch is hard enough. So you want to have a diverse set of viewpoints to kind of help your probability of success. So at the time that we invest, if there needs to be additional funding to close out the seed round, then yeah, we sometimes will reach out to our network and see where we think there'll be a good fit, either based on like the needs of the company or the expertise of various funds. Those are connections we've definitely made. And then I think the other part of the question was in later phases. So, follow-on investments isn't something that we typically do, but it has been something we've done in the past. Going back to my earlier statement, I don't think I'll ever say never, because there are, certain scenarios in which we feel like, we knowing what we know about the company, we want to make sure that they have enough capital to get to the next stage. So we may make, kind of bridge-like investments, but I would say that's not really the norm. However, in later phases, one of our key value propositions to companies is fundraising. Like, we kind of see it as our job to help you get to that next stage. And a key part of that is like raising money. And so we have a pretty large investor Rolodex of later stage funds that, over time we've like nurtured these relationships. We've, provided quality companies for them to invest in. And it's been generally a positive contribution to the ecosystem, which we feel like has only strengthened ourselves. And then when we do things like co-invest, we do that for a lot of reasons. It's to kind of nurture the climate tech space, really be, kind of put our name out there and kind of strengthen our position, but it's also for our portfolio companies to give them a platform with a bunch of investors, variety of stages, and expose them to that. And so like, yeah, when we have a process called structured fundraising, which depending on what the founder wants to do, Evergreen can be fully involved with helping you raise that Series A, or we can be involved in a part of it depending on, again, what the founder wants. But we do see that as one of our key responsibilities as an early investor.
Yes, definitely. Okay, we have a few more in the chat. So I can answer this one. Does Evergreen assist with providing direction on ancillary needs like insurance, real estate, accounting, etc.? So we could certainly provide assistance in that as it relates to being on our board and providing overall help and input and direction there. In addition, though, we have a pretty robust network of individuals who have expertise on these types of items. We call them our Evergreen experts. Companies within our portfolio are welcome and encouraged to leverage this network as much as they can, and they can provide assistance and probably more detailed and accurate guidance on things like accounting or real estate than the Evergreen investment team can. So, yes. Okay. And then last question in the chat is, do we co-invest with others? And also, how much equity do we ask for?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, like, in venture capital, we definitely try to find other investors just to kind of validate our own opinions and points of view. And as far as like equity, that's really dependent on kind of the maturity of the company. Like, are you producing revenue? What's the size of the market you're targeting? Typically, our investments don't take the form of straight equity, but that's sometimes the case. Typically what we do is we issue convertible debt, which later converts to equity. And so typically that's structured through, our note and the terms and conditions on it, which stipulates a valuation cap. But that valuation cap can vary pretty largely depending on, again, the maturity of the company, the size of the market that's shooting for, and attributes like that. So there's not a straight answer for, we want X%. We don't really operate that way.
Okay, that looks like that is it for questions in the chat. So now we can move on to questions that were sent ahead of time. So first up is for pre-revenue companies, what is the best initial investment plan path? Is it government grants, private investors, or other sources? So I can answer this one really quickly.
Yep.
Shashank, please chime in if you have any thoughts as well. It really depends, I think, on what sort of technology solution you have. For example, like a software solution, you may not need government grant dollars and can attract VC funding pretty early on in your development. On the other hand, for more like hard tech innovation, grant dollars may be a great initial way to receive funding. And from our perspective as investors, we view government grants as a great indicator of legitimacy or validation of a company's technology. So if we see you have an SBIR or STTR grant from the DOE or another government agency, for us, that's a great sign that there might be something really compelling here and could encourage us to take a deeper look. So definitely consider all avenues of funding, I would say. Okay, let's see. Next up is, so my company is not technically in the Midwest, but our technology has applications within the region. Can we still apply for funding?
Yeah, we typically, like I said, look for companies headquartered in that greater Midwest area, so like Denver to Pittsburgh. So just because, you know, certain products or technologies can be applied to the Midwest, I don't think that's a reason that we would invest. We definitely want to, you know, kind of going back to that thesis, you know, we want to provide capital to those areas that we feel like have not gotten nearly as much capital as other regions in the past. And, you know, our connections and the overall ecosystem that we've developed over the years is definitely strongest in the Midwest. So we feel like, you know, in order to be like a good mutually beneficial beneficial relationship to both sides, both the portfolio company and for Evergreen, it's best suited for being headquartered in that greater Midwest area.
Okay. And then building off of Shashank's answer, that's for like our investment program. But as we kind of talked about for these other platform or award related opportunities, those cover regions that might not be, that may be outside of the Midwest. So we wouldn't maybe look at for traditional investment, but there are certainly opportunities that we talked about today that could be applicable for you all.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah. So let's see, it looks like we have a few award related questions. So what does 12 months of mentorship from Evergreen look like for DEI award winners? Great question. It is completely customized and tailored to the winner and their needs. It can be everything from helping you map out your first financial raise and connecting you to investors for private capital. It can be anything from executive coaching, introductions to strategic partners or potential customers or suppliers. Really, we span the gamut and we'll go high and low to help our awardees basically cover the major topics that they want help on within that 1 year. So for example, 2020 winner Rebundle, we helped Sierra establish and stabilize her supply chain of raw materials that they use for the manufacturing and the primary material for their braiding hair. So that was a great thing that we were able to help Sierra for. And then, okay, let's see. And then are there any stipulations with winning the NICOR or US Bank Award, i.e. requirements for use of funds? No, there are no stipulations. It is a non-recourse grant. You are welcome to use that funding for whatever you see fit. There are no requirements there. Okay, looks like we have time for a few more questions. So Shashank, how about this one?
I'll take,
Yeah.
well, yeah, there are a few here that I can take. Do we lead rounds? You know, so again, going back to our check size, you know, oftentimes the amount we provide is not the majority for what a company wants in their overall seed stage. But that being said, you know, we're not against leading the round. If there's a number of parties who are interested in investing, but no one wants to be the lead, like we've been known to step in and be a lead in situations like that. And then another question, how should I prepare for seed round financing from Evergreen? Yeah, so typically, you know, we have I think it's a 7-step process, Dylan. There's like 7 filters as we go through our investment pipeline and kind of down select till we get to our final investment choices. I think as far as preparation goes, you know, obviously we want to see a pretty high quality investment deck. A personal word of advice that I would give to founders is make sure that the so what concept behind your product is very well represented. You know, that is to say to really clearly communicate what the value proposition and the benefits of your product are. And, you know, we think that that is a good way to kind of, you know, both get our attention, but also clearly articulate the problem that you are trying to solve. So, you know, you want to make sure you have a strong deck that conveys that. That's one thing that I think it will take you pretty far. And then, kind of as we go down later through the down selection process, we eventually will ask for a data room in a suite of documents related to like company incorporation and cap tables and things like that. So having all that infrastructure for your company kind of organized will also save you time and help us answer some of the questions that we want answered in the later stages of our process.
Yes. And then one thing to add on to that, if you feel like you could benefit from more direction as to what we are looking for as it relates to like physical materials, on our website on the apply page, we have a really helpful pitch deck how-to guide that walks you through how to craft a pitch deck and everything that you may want to include in a pitch deck that you're sending to investors like us. So I think we probably have time for one last question. Let's see. So if I have applied before but was not selected, can I apply again? And the answer is yes. You are more than welcome to reapply. We understand that updates can occur and that companies can have new value propositions or opportunities that can make you a really compelling investment for us to consider again in the future. When we pass on a company, we really value and take pride in providing specific feedback that we think could be beneficial for someone to take into consideration should they apply again, including even very specifically, we would like to see X before reconsidering your application for investment. So yes, you're more than welcome to apply. We hope that when we engage with you, we provide direction for how we can engage again in the future should you reapply. So yes, that opportunity is certainly available.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today, but thank you everyone for calling in and getting to know Evergreen and asking all the wonderful questions. Yeah, our website is a great place to kind of get any more questions answered. And as you've heard today, Dylan has very graciously given out her email address. So if you have any questions, you can send them her way. But yeah, thank you everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.